Chip Rogers, and welcome to the AAHOA Educational Experience. Thanks for joining us again this week. We continue our series on professional development, focusing on the CHO program. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but first I'd like to introduce my guests. We'll start with to my direct left, Dr. John Hogan, and to his left is Miss Kathleen Hogan. You guys are related.
Yes.
We're not going to get too much into that, but we just want to make sure everyone knows that. And you're both with hospitalityeducators.com, and I want to thank you for being here. And to your left is Dr. Gregory DeShields, and you are with Temple University, the famous Fighting Owls, right?
Absolutely.
And the Fox School of Business there. And I want to start first with Dr. Hogan, and we'll go down the line. We had talked off camera and a little bit in the first segment about, as we look at the hotel industry in the United States, you have, I think you told me 80% of the hotels are some sort of brands. And perhaps there are entrepreneurs, we're still the nation of entrepreneurs, who look at purchasing a hotel or running a hotel, and they think, well, if I just get a brand, it'll just take care of itself. And these brands are so popular and so successful, I really don't have to do anything. That would not be the case, would it?
No, it's not. The franchise model is a very successful one. It's very logical. It's been proven for the last 40-some years in many different businesses. In hotels, however, though, there is a certain amount of similarity of brands, sometimes within the same master franchisor and certainly within competing brands. The whole idea behind what we try to do in the CHO program is to take the spirit of entrepreneurship that so many AAHOA business owners and managers to a slightly lesser degree have, and try to make them aware of all of the potential successes and all the features that the brands have. Simply having a brand or franchise is not going to make them successful. That's not part of the promise that the franchisor makes. They make the promise that we'll help you, but we have to go through and recognize there has to be that partnership, and that's a very important function or a message that's throughout the CHO program.
And Kathleen, as we talked about in a prior show, it doesn't necessarily matter, because we're referencing brands here, it doesn't necessarily matter what brand you have. As it pertains to being an owner, having this training and having this professional development would transcend all brands, or transcend into no brands if you were an independent hotelier. So this is the CHO program that we've been talking about for the last few weeks, is really something that benefits all owners regardless of what flag they have.
Absolutely. And when we put the program together, it was keeping in mind the whole concept of blended learning, because you have people at different levels of expertise within the industry all coming together in the same room. And we wanted to engage them so that it would be a program that they could participate in, find their voice, start sharing information, really enjoy the exercises that are built into the program. We have, for instance, a critical thinking and business ethics exercise. And that gives them the opportunity, given a scenario, what solutions might they come up with? And they get to talk about it together, and they're sharing information back and forth, and it also loosens them up so that they feel comfortable with the class, and it opens them up to being able to absorb even more information. So it doesn't matter whether you're with a franchise or not, or an independent. It doesn't matter if you're new to the industry, this may be your first hotel, or if you have several. There's lots of good information for everybody to take away.
Mr. DeShields, you've been around the industry for a long time. I want to talk about something I think that's kind of, it plays off of this idea of being a certified hotel owner and having this type of professional development. I sense in the hospitality industry that sometimes there's a belief that perhaps we're selling a product, which is a room, or the amenities that go along with that room. But in a way, you're really also selling a service, because a good room with terrible service is going to be a catastrophe in the hospitality industry. What do you see as some of the service-related issues that first-time owners or people that are just getting into the business don't recognize until they get there?
Well, I think it's a deeper understanding of what really is the incentive for a customer to purchase today. Consumers have so much more insight about what their expectations should be when they are purchasing a hotel. And the mistake that a lot of first-time hotel owners may embark upon is just to underestimate the customer. They're much more sophisticated in terms of their expectation. Their demands are much more specific in terms of what a property should deliver, and I think that owners may be too general in their interpretation of, I have a great hotel, I have a customer, this should be an easy match.
Right.
And customers today have such a keen way of determining what is a real good value, the approach that they'll even take to find a property, and the idea that social media now plays such an instantaneous role in how people perceive things. It really, once again, I think means that an owner has to be much more aware of truly what service is and how service is expected, and then ultimately how to deliver it.
I'm going to follow up on that. I think you brought up something that's extremely important.
Yes.
One of the keys to what you're doing is bringing professionalism and bringing it to those who already have professionalism to a new level. When I am a consumer, as Greg pointed out, and now I have the capability, it's one thing to have a destination hotel and recognize that people traveling to that location are probably going to do some research prior to getting there, and they'll figure out if you're doing a good job or not. But now I have the capability of literally driving down I-75 and on my handheld device looking at and figuring out whether your interstate hotel is delivering the goods and the professionalism that's necessary. So perhaps in the past when you could get away with not being on the top of your game, you can't get away with that anymore, can you? I mean, this is required.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we're not saying negative things about the rationale or the reason why billboards are out there, but today the billboards are online. And today you have, I think, one of the short videos that we include, we have a number of videos in each of the 9 segments. We go through and you have something like 7 seconds to get that first impression of a customer to see if they even want to look at you. And it's like the billboard, but it's somebody sitting in front of you. And if you don't make it so that it appears to be very inviting or very welcoming, they click and you've lost that opportunity. The other piece of it is we have allowed ourselves as an industry at one point to rely on the OTAs, the online travel agencies, for handling distressed inventory, stuff that we were never going to be able to sell. Well, it's evolved and we're 15 years later now, and they have become a very important deliverer, a revenue source, and that's positive. But if in fact we allow them to treat us as a commodity and it's only by price, then we become one of many, many choices, and therefore all we do is needlessly discount ourselves as opposed to positioning ourselves as somebody that has something very special. So we blend all of those things together in literally all 9 of our programs.
And just before we go to the next segment, after the break, I really want to delve into what is CHO. But before we do that, I want to follow up on this idea of the access to information that consumers have. It's almost, sadly, in many ways, it's mathematical. I mean, when I go and look on any of these websites, I can sit there and sort, or it'll sort for me and tell me by a percentage of people who like this one. So you could give the best service in the world to the first person, but if you mess it up with the second person, you're at 50%, and that's not going to cut it.
Absolutely. We travel more. The consumer does their due diligence, and what you talked about as far as it's mathematical and they can do the process of elimination very quickly with the technology at their fingertips. While that is all true, it's when you get to the hotel what your experience is, because that is ultimately what they're buying. They want the experience. They want the value for the money spent. And it's not just the dollar amount. It's just all that the hotel offers. It's the people skills. It's the ambiance. It's the little wow factors that are given to each and every customer. But you're right, consistency, it's going to help them and promote them, or it's going to really hurt them, because the consumers are also taking the advice and the readout from the customer comments of others who have already gone there. So it's very important.
And we do have to take a break, and I'm not going to mention this company's name because they're not paying for advertising here, but if you live in the southern part of the United States, there's a particular fast food restaurant that everyone will know, that when you ask a question is, why is it they do so well, everyone says they're friendly, they're clean, they're consistent. Now that has nothing to do with price. When I ask people this question all the time, they never mention price because their price is actually a little bit higher. But that restaurant, every time, and people will know what I'm talking about, it's consistent, it's clean, and the people there are very friendly. That is an incredible business model. We'll talk more about CHO coming up right after the break. Okay, welcome back. We're talking about professional development and CHO, and I want to get into that with my guests, Dr. John Hogan, Kathleen Hogan, and Gregory DeShields. Dr. Hogan, what is CHO? We've used this term for the last couple of weeks on this show, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, but really, what is it?
Well, AAHOA decided that they wanted to create a special program that really was focused on helping their members, whether they were branded or independent, whether they had been in the industry for a long time or relatively new, to help go through and look at ownership issues. And so they created a special certification. They went through a whole review process. And now, about a dozen years later, they went through last year, put through an RFP to go through and to come up with a new tremendously expanded and refreshed program, which is where we are now. It's a program, it's not an academic program, but it's something that's created to help the individual hotel owners, managers sometimes, but clearly owners, to go through and to recognize and to reward their skills, to expand their competencies, and to give them something that they can have a sense of accomplishment and pride for, which is exactly where it's evolving to very, very quickly.
Kathleen, we talked in a prior segment about professionalism and raising the standards because consumers now have so much access to information. They're going to know if you're delivering at your hotel or not. What does that mean, though, for the hotel owner in real dollars? So what if we're just a little bit more professional? I mean, how can that actually impact their bottom line?
You only have one chance to make that first impression face-to-face. If you're using the technology with a website that you're trying to generate some revenue, booking rooms using an OTA or directly booking right from your website, you're aware already of the power of technology. And you're probably also aware of any comments coming through TripAdvisor or other entities out there. It's important for you to answer those comments. It's the only way that you can retrieve a situation that's gone wrong. And if it's a positive comment, you can amplify it twofold by answering and saying, well, thank you very much, for your nice comment about whatever it is. So you highlight that. It makes a world of difference as far as how you're going to do long term. And I don't know if I answered your question fully.
No, you did. And you think about, again, going back to, we all search, we all look at ratings, we all look at the mathematical percentages. Let's say you increased your support from your customers by 10%. You went from 80% favorability rating to 90% favorability rating. That could be a major impact on how your business does.
Absolutely. And it sets you up for an even greater growth, because now you've keyed into something that is creating some buzz or some positive playback on your website, on TripAdvisor, word of mouth. Word of mouth is always the best advertisement, and now word of mouth is coming through these customer comments. So you can take that as a launch to build upon it and capture even more market share and sell your rooms even better. It's responsiveness to what the customers are saying they want.
And Greg, you mentioned a moment ago, you kind of kicked this off talking about the social media, but the professional development, as we've been discussing here, is really, to me, it seems like that's the key thing that's going to be discussed on social media, because you go into a hotel, and unless you're talking about a destination resort style hotel, and you have expectations that are fairly similar across all brands, but it's what is being delivered by the people through service, what's being delivered that people are going to use and talk about on social media. And that can make an enormous impact.
It can make a huge impact. I think also understanding through the certification truly the resources that are available to you. I mean, there's a variety aside from the top of mind social media options, but there are a variety. I think it's important to select which form of social media best fits your establishment, realizing that you don't have to do them all. There are some that just fit your property better than others. And I think when you look at the world of social media, it's narrowing down what works best for you in the time that you have to devote to it. Some resources with social media allow you to put a very short message out that can be a very powerful message. But I think no matter what way you ultimately go, there are a bunch of analytical components associated with social media that from a certification perspective allows you to understand the professional use of these tools to drive your business and make it even that much more powerful.
And it's also important, I guess, to recognize too, where is social media going? I mean, we think of social media, we think immediately Facebook and Twitter, right?
Correct.
But how is it being delivered? I think it's critically important, because just 2 years ago, most social media would be delivered probably on a desktop or laptop.
Right.
And today, social media is being delivered on a handheld device.
Correct. I think the other important thing about social media is it's still in its infancy, and I think the true power of it has yet to be defined for our business. I think what's really important about the CHO training is it puts you in a position to be a part of the growth of social media and how it'll be integrated into this industry. I think more discussion around mobile applications and how they'll be refined in the way of accessing social media more efficiently in your organization. Because it's one thing to go to the web and try and navigate your way through, but as a company, if you're able to look at building a specific mobile app that's really designed to get your message in a user-friendly way, and that's really the direction from the use of social media and mobile applications, will allow you to be in a much stronger position to be competitive and ultimately be a better business overall.
And Dr. Hogan, this is critical in that we discussed in a prior show about the CHO program and why it's important to stay on top of it. If you took it 8 years ago, it's a much different program today. And as Greg pointed out, I mean, emerging technologies are literally, but have literally changed the face of hospitality and how at least you deliver communication between your consumer and the product provider. And that's what your program is going to bring, right?
Well, the leadership goal, which is the name of this particular segment or portion of the CHO program, was meant to identify that we're looking at the next generation while still appreciating the founding generation of AAHOA hoteliers. There are so many changes that have happened. You said you used the number 8 years as someone who may have taken this or a similar program 8 years ago, but the industry itself has changed tremendously in 4 years. How reservations are delivered through so many different mediums, so many different distribution channels, and not all of them are profitable. Some of them are easier than others, and so what we do in literally all 9 segments or all 9 modules of the program, we go through and help them understand how technology can be of service, but it's not the end all. Things that both of Kathleen and Greg were saying. Sometimes it is having the best of technology or the latest, but sometimes it's recognizing that that's not what everyone is looking for. They're looking for the high service. What Kathleen was saying about that little difference. Sometimes maybe only being 10% different, just offering that one little extra service, that one little extra anything in housekeeping or in the welcome or at the checkout, that's what makes the big difference. And that's the kind of things we really make sure in each of the related but very different topics and different modules to make it so that they can become more profitable.
But technology it's essentially a tool. And some people use that tool quite well, other people do not. But I know as someone who tries to stay on, I try to keep up with everybody. I'm always a little bit jealous of the guy who has a little bit more technology, and I'm trying to figure out, well, show me how that works. And you bring that to the hotel owner who says, I hear all these things from either my competitors or my friends in the industry, and I'd like to know how to do some of that stuff as well.
Oh, we do all that, but we also help them go through with any improvements or any proposed changes in technology or other means of getting reservations or building revenue, is to go through and you have to measure the ROI. And we try to go through and help them to identify what those key indicators of what the ROI is. It's not always good to be the first. Sometimes let somebody else be the first, let them make the mistakes, and then we've all learned over the years about buying this piece of this toy or that toy that sometimes it's better to be second when somebody else has gone through and made the mistakes and paid for it, then we don't have to.
Somebody told me once recently, with all the losses in real estate, that they figured out it's good to be the 4th golf course owner, not the first, second, third, the 4th golf course owner. We are out of time, but we've got a lot more on this subject, and we'll delve back into it again next week. I want to say thank you to my guest, Gregory DeShields. Thank you for being here. And Kathleen and John Hogan, thank you so much. I'm Chip Rogers, and if you'd like to contact me, you can do so via email, chip@ahoa.com. That's chip@ahoa.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again next week.